Sure.
Great.
So let's start off with the employee job satisfaction and engagement survey. And this is a survey we've been doing every year for over 10 years now. And this year we decided to include a new component. We included engagement as well as job satisfaction. So you often see with big employers and the consulting firms they work with that they not only measure job satisfaction, but they also measure engagement, employee engagement as an additional component. And so we added that to our mix this year. The other thing that we did this year is to sample a larger sample so that we would be able to provide benchmark norms to our member organizations. So in other words, if I'm a company and I'm generally a small or medium-sized company, I can't usually afford the Gallups and the Hewitts in terms of the price tag to do an employee survey for my company because I'm small and don't have the resources. So I end up doing something, say, with a Survey Monkey or something like that, where I just do a homegrown thing. Well, if I do that, I don't have anybody to compare myself to, so I don't know if it's good that I have this level of satisfaction with pay or bad that I have this level of satisfaction. How do I compare to my industry? So this is the first year we collected enough data so we could break it by industry so that our members will be able to break things down by industry as well as sort of an overall piece. So that's new this year. And then findings in terms of sort of overall findings, a caveat that when you see others reporting job satisfaction data out there, sometimes you'll see it from consulting firms. And consulting firms in general have the model where they get their data from their clients, and their clients are big organizations. So sometimes you'll see a disparity between what we report and what they report on job satisfaction. The difference is we're not just reporting big organizations. In fact, our data comes from any company that has the population of companies in the United States who have an HR person in their company. So that means starting at about the 50 to 100 mark in terms of employees, you start to get HR people, and so our data represents any company that has an HR person in the United States. Now, if you think about the population of companies in the United States, it's way more heavily leaning towards small companies. And so about 2/3 of our sample is always small companies versus about 1/3 that are bigger companies. And that's what differentiates some of our data from other data that you might see out there. And in general, ours is a better representation of the American workforce in the sense that we're representing the population of companies better than many of the others who report on big companies. So that's the caveat for this data. This year, we also, in the handout that this page that you have in front of you, reported gaps. So we measure two things. We measure how satisfied employees are, and we measure how important that element is to their job satisfaction. So in other words, something like compensation, we not only ask how satisfied they are with their compensation, but we ask how important is that to driving their job satisfaction. And then this year we looked at what are the gaps between those. So let's say this is the top driver of satisfaction. Well, how satisfied are people with that? And then what's the difference? That tells us where the biggest gaps are between what people say is most important and what they're happiest with, which is kind of a new thing for us this year. So this reports that. So the numbers that you see after the job satisfaction aspect is its ranking in importance. So job security, for example, was this year's top element of driver of satisfaction. So I'm most satisfied with my job if I feel like I'm secure in my job. Well, that makes sense, and we've had that same number one satisfier for the last 4 years. It moved in at the beginning of the recession, and we've had it for 4 years now. And so it's not surprising given the economic conditions. And the number two piece that you'll see, and this is always in the top 5, is opportunity to use my skills and abilities at work. So in other words, employees are saying, not only is job security important to me, but I need to be able to show that I'm relevant and that this is a piece that's really important to me in terms of using my skills and abilities. I'll be most satisfied if I find a job that optimizes that. So that's the number 2 most important driver of satisfaction this year. The third one correlates with the first, and that's company financial stability. So again, that's the number 3 driver this year, and it's very highly correlated with job security, and so you would expect that to be high. The third one this year is this is a tie for third with the financial stability, and that's relationship with immediate supervisor. So again, people don't quit their jobs; they generally quit their supervisor because of a bad relationship with the supervisor. And so again, that's very high on the list of satisfiers for this year. The number 4th one this year is pay and compensation, with 5th being benefits. So those always are in the top 5 pieces in terms of satisfiers as well. So nothing extremely surprising there in terms of the top drivers of satisfaction. I think and one of the reasons we did the gap analysis this year is because I think it's a little bit more informative in terms of, you know, what do people want versus what are they feeling most satisfied with. So if you look at it from that perspective, the biggest gap again is in the job security piece. So 63% said it was the most important driver of job satisfaction, but only 28% said they were very satisfied with their level of job security. That's a difference of 35, which was the highest difference that we saw this year. Again, driven by economy. Again, the second biggest gap was with pay. We had another big gap with benefits. So again, there's been a lot of pay freezes, a lot of benefit cutbacks, all related to the economic conditions. I think the one that is the most noteworthy is the number 3 largest gap, and that's the one between communication between employees and senior management. So in other words, this is where they're feeling it's very important to have good communication, but only 26% are very satisfied with the level of communication they're getting. And again, I think this is driven some by the economic conditions, in the sense that you know, if we don't have good news, it's hard to be communicative with our employees, and so instead of being communicative, we just stop being communicative in this time, because we don't have good news to say in large part. So that's my interpretation of why that might have a rather large gap this year. And then this is something we'll be doing in years forward too, so we'll be able to watch gaps from here forward and watch how things move. One of the other things that we did this year was to break down by male versus female satisfaction in drivers, and look at those gaps from a male and female perspective, and to see where there were differences in perspectives. And what we found is that on job security, we found a larger gap for females. So, for example, males found that 64% said it was very important part of their job satisfaction. Females were 63%, so they're pretty equal on their job on what drove their job security. I'm sorry, they were both 63. I'm sorry, both 63 on job security. But the difference in what their level of satisfaction is that males were 31% of males were satisfied, very satisfied with job security. Only 24% of females. So again, females are feeling a bit more dissatisfaction with their job security than males. Similarly, on financial stability of the company, and again, these are correlated. So on financial stability, 55% of males and 56% of females said this was important to their job satisfaction, so pretty much equal. But 34% of males said they were very satisfied with the organization's financial stability versus 24% of women. And so, again, we see a disparity there and a bit of a difference.
I don't think we have that on this copy.
I think it's at
Yep.
second page.
It's on the back side.
Should be a lot of
No, what
figured
you're
out,
looking
but-
at right there. This is what I was referring to. So job security, it was
Oh, and
63
financial.
versus
Okay.
61, and then organizational
Yeah.
financial, 56 versus
Okay,
55.
thank you.
Okay, and then, so those are kind of the big differences in the male-female pieces from this year. Then the next piece is on employee engagement. And like I said, this is new this year. And what's most interesting to look at this is that we have three different components to engagement. The first component is the conditions in an organization have to be right for engagement to occur. So if you don't have the environment that's supportive of somebody's being engaged in their work, well, they're probably not going to be engaged. So when we look at the second two parts then are what are the opinions of the employee in terms of engagement. So how do I feel as an employee about my engagement? And then the third element is what do I see in my organization in terms of others' behaviors and their engagement. So it's about the conditions, it's about the self-opinion, and it's about what others in my organization are perceiving in terms of engagement. So three perspectives on engagement. So the first one is conditions on the front of the handout. And basically it's most interesting to look at the bottom side of this graph to look at, well, what are the conditions that are less likely in organizations to exist. And what we see are career advancement opportunities, development opportunities, and related to those two, bottom two, if you move up just a couple, you'll see job-specific training and organizational commitment to professional development, just a few points out. So when I look at this bottom half of the graph, I'm seeing development stick out really big. That is, the opportunity to get development in organization appears to be low. And when we've looked at other data that we've collected over this year on where HR departments are cutting back, indeed, training and development are one of the areas that we see a lot of cutbacks in as one of those sort of discretionary pieces that during the recession was cut back significantly in HR departments. So that's being reflected in this in terms of people saying they're not very satisfied with the career opportunities in terms of development and advancement, in terms of training that they're getting, which doesn't create good conditions for engagement. So that's what this first slide part is telling us. The second part on the back talks about, well, what's my overall, as an employee, what's my overall opinion of how engaged I am? And you can see at the top of that, people are saying, well, you know, I'm engaged in accomplishing my work goals and I'm confident that I can meet extra. On the next scale, what they're saying about their peers, they're saying the same thing about their peers, that others in my organization view unexpected responsibilities as an opportunity. Well, very few are saying that, only 38%. And other people in my organization often volunteer for new projects, only 35% are saying that. So in other words, people are not giving back the way they probably did in leaner times. And again, I would interpret that from the front side as saying, well, if the company isn't giving me development opportunities and not giving me advancement opportunities, well, that's going to play out somehow in my opinions and in what I see from others. And that looks to be playing out in, does that mean then that I take on extra responsibilities and extra duties and so forth? So I'm not feeling like I'm getting extra training, so why would I take on extra new projects? Or I'm not getting extra development, why would I go out of my way? I don't have career advancement opportunities, why would I do extra things to try to advance my career by volunteering for new projects? As we slowly come out of this, the war for talent will be back on again, and when that happens, given some of the dissatisfiers that we see and some of the lack of advancement opportunities or perceived lack of advanced opportunities, there is potential for turnover. On the good news side of things, you know, 83% of employees, if you go to the little box on the top, 83% are saying they're either very satisfied or satisfied with their job. So and we haven't seen that change much over the last 10 years. It's generally in the high 70s to low 80s. So in general, people find ways to be satisfied at work. When you dig down a little further into specifics, you find out where they're least satisfied with pieces. And then industries where there's going to be more competition for jobs and more availability of jobs, that's where you're going to see the war for talent play out again. So for example, in high tech, you know, where you have satisfaction problems in high tech, you're going to see more turnover because there's more opportunity available right now. Guys on that, and then I'll talk a little bit about another piece of research on the social networking side. So,
do we have a number? How many companies actually participated?
Yeah, it's on the back. It's 600 employees randomly selected from our membership, and our membership is about 257,000 now.
And that was a good combination of all sizes.
It's all sizes and across all industries. And so what we do is we look to see that our data is representative of our membership, and it's very close. And it's, I believe, it's a 4% margin of error. So in other words, plus or minus 4 points is the difference on the sampling. So like in a poll, on candidates, you always see plus or minus 3 points. Well, that means that you should interpret things as less than plus or minus 4 points as being the same. So in other words, if something's 56 and something, we do have that data, and it will be coming out in the report. I can tell you a little bit that the most satisfied folks were in the veterans generation, so that's the 67 and older group. And the least satisfied were Generation X. That's the 31 to 46-year-olds.
Okay.
Those are the ones who will never see Social Security. And that's all I have for you right now, but that'll be out in the report as well. That's coming out in a couple of weeks.
And has flexibility to balance work and life issues always been so low in terms of being important to, in the last 10 years that you've been doing it, in terms of it being important to job satisfaction?
Yeah, it's never high for the general population, but when you start to break it down by subpopulations, like we did last year, and we found that women were significantly more likely to see that as an important driver, as well as minorities. And so those are our two fastest growing populations of workers right now. And so when you look at it from that perspective, well, then it's a little bit of a different story. But we also did a survey last year where we asked managers, first, the Economist Intelligence Unit did a survey of CEOs and basically said, what's your biggest challenge going to be over the next 10 years? And they said, attracting and retaining top talent. That's going to be our biggest issue. So then we went to our membership and we said, so given that the CEOs are saying these are the two biggest challenges, what are the tactics that you think are going to be most important over the next 10 years to attract and retain? And WorkFlex was the number one tactic that they believed was going to be the most important to attract and retain in the coming workforce. So it's important, even though it doesn't come up to the top on here. It was one of those things for the folks that it is important to, it's really important to.
Right.
Piece. And we've done a series of these now. This is just a bit of an overview of one of the studies. We've done 3 now, and they're posted on our website under the research tab in a special section on the right-hand side of the page. We've also included some case studies in that section of some of our member organizations who have volunteered to put their information up there. This particular one happens to be on screening. We have another one that's on recruiting and another one on social media used in general in organizations for communication and branding and so forth. But this one really talks about how people are using this as a screening tool. And we've seen a number of studies now coming out that say everybody's doing this. They're using this as a screening device. And what we've found is, while almost everyone is doing this now as a recruiting device, that is, they're using social media as a recruiting device, less are doing it now or using it now as a screening device. That is, less are just going out there and saying, what can I find on this person on their social media page or by Googling them on sort of out of the blue. And the reasons for that they're telling us they're not doing that is they have a concern about legal risks by using that information. Oftentimes those sites and those searches that they do, say on Google, turn up information that's not job related. And our members are recognizing that that's a dangerous thing for them to do as well as their hiring managers to do. And that's what we're seeing in this data, is that we're seeing a decrease in the use of these screening pieces, a small decrease and a small increase in those saying that we've cut them out and we don't plan to use them in the future. So we're seeing actually folks are taking this in the right direction in terms of their legal exposure to potential difficulties.
It'd be interesting to know if it were the same people using it in 28 that are using it in 2011.
Yeah, we don't have exact panel.
Because you wonder if the people that are using it now are also just experimenting, and they will soon realize that no, you know what, we don't want to do this either.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad is the trend, by the way. I mean,
yeah. And I think the trend is in the correct direction on the recruiting side. That is, using these sources
right as for candidates.
Yeah, to source candidates is a really good idea, and people are actually starting to move dollars from online job boards into more of the social recruiting. So we're seeing those companies lose revenue while the social media are increasing from the job-related sourcing pieces. But the fact that people have looked at it and said, gee, if we screen people using these kinds of tools, first of all, if I look at you and you, I don't find the same information about you. You might have posted one sort of information, you might have posted another. I can't compare